and I can't believe I would even say this on the internet, but I can't see myself having a daily driver that's not a Tesla for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Hey, y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. Guess who I am with? I am with Brandon from Car Questions Answered and new channel, EVs on Ice. So make sure you go to both of those channels. I'll leave all the info in the description so you can go subscribe to those. EVs on Ice, your first video already has 62,000 views. So congratulations. That's impressive. So anyway, hi, first of all, welcome. And second of all, the reason you're here today is because you bought not one, but two Teslas. So we're going to talk about that. So I don't know. First of all, say hi, whatever you want to say, Andy.
Yeah, I love doing this kind of stuff, especially in a space that I don't know a whole lot about. I know Dr. Noel saying that I just started this channel, but this channel is not really because I'm an expert in spaces, because I don't know enough about the space, and I'm just taking viewers along with the journey. So, like you said, the channel is EVs on Ice. Go check it out if you're I'm trying to bridge the gap between the anti-EV people and you Tesla fanboys. I want to be that voice right in the middle to be able to say something that's negative about these cars, but also bring to light some of the stuff that maybe some of these anti-EV or even people that are thinking about getting EVs, but they're not quite sure. I want to be able to show my experience. So if they have a question about something, they can see some of these videos, and hopefully I'll be able to answer it for them.
Super. Actually, before we even get to the Tesla question, let's because I know the sort of background of this is that you've on your main channel, Car Questions Answered, every time you would do anything about EVs, you got hate mail, apparently, like a lot of it. And so you're like, what the hell's going on? If I'm remembering correctly, right? Has that modified at all, or is that still pretty violently anti-EV?
I wouldn't call it hate mail. There was a lot of back and forth in the comments because, yeah, I mean, my channel covers the car market, and it's predominantly the ICE realm of things. So I'm going to get a lot of viewers that are stuck in their ways, and they only want to know about the car market, which is the way that they see it, which has nothing to do with EVs. So what I was seeing, and probably what you're remembering, is that if I would ever put a video on our main channel that had anything to do, if the title had Tesla in it, if I talked about EVs for a lot, if the algorithm picked up that I talked about Tesla a lot, then it wouldn't even feed it to a lot of my viewers, because the algorithm already knew, when I'm talking about the algorithm, YouTube pushing videos to certain viewers, the algorithm had also already picked up that, okay, I have viewers that will not watch anything about EVs. They will not watch anything that talks a lot about EVs. So that video didn't even get served. So anytime I would put out any kind of EV centric video, it would absolutely bomb on my channel. And it's not like I'm not an expert in it. So, and I'm not an expert in it, but it's not like I was giving information about a technology I don't understand. It was, I was talking about the actual market surrounding it, not the technology, but just the market and what Ford is doing in their sales, or what Chevy is doing to release their EVs. Nothing about the technology, just where the market is at, what the numbers are showing. And the video would absolutely bomb. So I knew that I had to figure out, if I wanted to talk about the EV space, I cover the car market. The EV space is a massive part of the car market. So if I want to cover the car market thoroughly, then I also need to talk about EVs, but I need to put it in a place where people are actually receptive to hearing about EVs. So this is a big reason for the new channel.
Cool. That's awesome. And hopefully it will just rocket up to fame, just like your other one. So let's turn to the Teslas. So this, a few months ago, in fact, I'll leave a link up here, and also I'll put it in the description if you want to watch it. You know, you did your, I think, first drive ever in a Tesla with me, right? We met
with you. Yeah. That was my first drive ever. Your Model Y.
Yeah. So anyway, so we did that. And then after that, I guess you got, I don't know, encouraged enough that you decided to at least dip your toes in the water. So tell us about the two vehicles. I only knew about one. I didn't know about your second one. So what did you get?
Yeah, so I bought a 2019 Model 3. It's got 86,000 miles on it. I paid a little over 17 grand for it. It's a standard range plus. And the reason why I had no intentions of buying this. When I talked to you and Farzad, when we did our interview, you guys thought that the S would be better for me. I agreed when I started doing research, and I wanted an S, but I could never find one that would come up at auctions. I'm a used car dealer. I wanted to buy one from the auction. I went to some car dealers to actually try to buy an S, but that was an absolute nightmare. We can talk about that if you want to, but anyway, it just wasn't happening. It was they're shady. The prices that I thought I was going to pay, it was just a nightmare. So I said, okay, I'm not even thinking about this. I don't know how the average consumer even deals with used car dealers, and I'm a used car dealer, and I don't know. It was a nightmare, to say the least.
That's why I'm laughing. The irony of this whole thing, you going like, even you hate used car dealers. So.
It was so bad. Anyway, so I got antsy. I wanted to go ahead and get this done. I wanted to start the channel or whatever. So I see Model 3s at auction all the time. They're everywhere at these auctions. And so I just say, you know what? Here's one at the auction. Thought it was an okay price. I bought it. And then 3 weeks later, the perfect Model S that I wanted came up at auction. So I was like, you know what? We're doing this channel. We might as well just do the whole thing. So I bought that one too. It's a 2019. It's got 100,000 miles on it. And it's got the Raven package in it. It's a long range, and I paid a little over $22,000 for it. But I know 100,000 miles seems like a lot to some Tesla owners. Some will say, well, that's nothing. I'm getting different things in the comments. I don't know what the real answer is to that yet. But I did learn, because I have a contact in Tesla, and he was able to check on maintenance history, everything like that. The battery was actually replaced 1 month before I bought it. I've got a brand new battery in it. Yep.
Oh, I was going to ask you about the range. I think I stole that car. Yeah, I think you did steal that car. Holy crap. I was going to ask you about the range, because that's always the thing that people worry about with older batteries. And, I think that the general consensus, and one of the problems with the EV space in general, not just Tesla, is these cars haven't been around for 20 years. So, with a gas engine car, you're like, oh yeah, the Lexus, this particular engine, it'll last 200,000 miles, no problem if you take care of it. With batteries, people are like, we don't know, because, we just haven't had that many vehicles that have been around that long. So, but certainly getting a new battery is a very positive thing. That's awesome.
But even with on the Model S, and I'm going to go straight to something negative, right? That's me. So even with the Model S, with it having that new battery, I think it's still so overly optimistic that it's showing that it's got 345 miles of range when I have it all the way charged. And I tested it all the way down. I drove it for a couple days without charging it. It's hot here in North Carolina, so we also had the AC, but it lost like 70 or 80 miles due to optimism in this car. So that was surprising to me, with the battery being new in it, that it still was that far off of what it recommended.
Did you notice that it was there was a lot of mileage loss overnight and things, or not? Because
it happened while I was driving, so I was actively tracking it, because you can track the trip after you charge it or whatever, and it just seemed like it was going down so much faster than how many miles I was actually driving it.
Interesting. There are a couple things. I mean, they've gotten it. I will agree with you about the optimism. It feels, and I don't have a Model S, so I couldn't tell you relative to that, but at least our Model Y and Model 3, they used to be way more optimistic, but then the EPA kind of got on their case, and they reduced the official mileage from like 330 to 310 or something now. And, at least it brings it into a little bit more closely. It's still not perfect. But, I mean, I will say that, like, driving a gas car, if it says you're going to get 400 miles on the gas car, you're never going to get that. If you're on a road trip, you're going to get like 320 or something. So it just because you're driving 75
I don't know
miles an
that's
hour.
whoa. I don't know that's that far off. It's not even close to as far off as what this was. Tesla was.
No. The Teslas are optimistic. I like that. That's a good way of putting it. They're optimistic.
They're a glass half full kind of cars.
So there you go. So what do you think? I guess since you've got the Model S and the Model 3, I remember talking to you that the reason you wanted the Model S was because it felt more like a traditional car. So does that still bear out? Like, do you feel like the Model 3 is more difficult to drive because it doesn't feel like a traditional car? Do you notice it anymore?
It's not about difficulty to drive. So the Model 3 feels like I'm driving a computer in a very cheap car frame, and the
Okay.
Model S feels like a more solid, more luxury. It almost feels like I'm in a BMW.
Yeah.
The way that now the build quality is not close, but the way that the car rides on the road, you don't hear as much road noise. The Model 3 has a ton of road noise,
Right.
and the Model S does not.
Yeah.
The Model 3, their clips. Now, both of these are both 2019, and they
Right.
both have relatively the same mileage. Model 3, like the steering wheel is already like the top of it's coming apart.
Yeah.
The trim clips all in it they're like popped out, so stuff's flopping around in there. The Model 3, if I had it, so I on my car lot, I sell cars that are $5,000 and under, so I have
Right.
a lot of experience with cheaper cars. And the Model 3 really feels to me like a very fast 2005 Kia Spectra. That like the build quality and
Right.
how it feels on the road. That's how it feels. But I will say, even saying those negative things, the Model 3 is more fun to drive. Like the Model 3
Right.
feels faster than the S, and it's the 0 to 60 time is almost a whole second. It actually might be even more than a second
Yeah.
less than the Model S that I have. But the Model 3 will like kick you back in your seat. It's fun to drive. It's like a little go-kart. And I don't know if it's more of because it's just a lighter car. I don't know if it because it's smaller, it feels like you can zip around in it a lot quicker, but it's more fun to drive than the S. But the S feels definitely more like a car that I'm used to than the Model 3.
Yeah. I've noticed that too because we have a dual motor Model Y and we only have a single motor Model 3 and the Model 3 is way slower accelerating than the Model Y, but it just feels faster. I think because it's low to the ground, it feels real sporty and it's a it's a small-ish car and so you do feel like you're just zipping around. Yeah, go-kart's kind of the right way to think about it. So the all important question is, what does your wife think about this? Because the wife test is always the important question.
So I have been blessed with a very functional wife. So she
Is she
doesn't
going
care
to
about the
appreciate that term?
acceleration. Yeah. Oh yeah,
Functional
yeah,
wife.
yeah. She would. She would. She doesn't. I mean, she doesn't spend money. She's. I have like the perfect wife in the world. But along with that, she's not going to care about certain things that I care about in a car because she does.
Right,
She's not flashy. She's not. She's all function, and that's it. So
right.
obviously, we know one thing: the cup holders in Teslas are absolute ass.
Yeah,
we know this. So that's one thing that she big time picks out. The other thing is that okay, so, like the acceleration is great, and I love it. That's my favorite thing about these
yeah,
Teslas. But she's not trying to go from 0 to 60 quickly, so that's not a big draw for her. She
right.
loves the idea of this experiment I'm doing, and she loves the charging at home. The
Mhm.
one problem that she has picked out is like I charge in my garage. So you have to make sure you always have that garage spot open. So
Yeah,
if you have any kind of storage or in your garage, you have to plan to make sure that you are leaving that spot open unless you want to charge outside. I know a lot of people are fine charging outside. I'm not comfortable with that yet. I'm not worried that
right.
there's any kind of problem with the technology charging. I just don't want to run a cord outside. That's
Yeah,
my thing.
yeah.
So that's one big downside that she looks at. There also in the Model S, there's the dumbest little compartment right beside of the handle. It's like this
Okay.
little V-shaped thing that just sticks out. It's too small to put your cell phone in, and it just looks like it's just going to catch all the debris or whatever that's in there because it's a deep little pocket. It's about this big,
Huh.
and I don't know what it's designed for. I have no
Right.
clue, but it's just some weird little thing that's there. So she obviously picks that out, and like there's zero purpose for
Right.
this thing. I had to order extra little compartments to put inside the dash because the Tesla is just not set up for like use case. And I've used the analogy of the S with a BMW because
Right.
BMWs are the same way. Like they have these weird cup holders that
Right.
aren't very big, and they have some cup holders that just come out of the front of the dash that are
Right.
absolutely pointless. So I think the analogy of the BMW and the Model S, they're used for I mean, it's a sports car. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whereas the Model 3, I don't feel like is supposed to be a sports car. I think it's supposed to be more of your everyday car.
Right.
As far as functionality, I think it is a little bit better than the S as far as just
Oh.
everyday driving.
Okay.
But it would just go back to build quality, and it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it's a very well put together car.
Yeah, I would I remember the 2019, you know, they were just getting the cars out at that point, and they were built very different than they are now. So I have a feeling if you drove the new version, the Highland, you would feel, you know, hopefully you would feel like it was significantly improved, because it's like the whole inside of the car is just completely different than it used to be.
And I hear that a lot, but if you want people to get into Teslas, you have to have used Teslas that hold up and hold up well. So it's going to be another 5 years before you have these nicer Model 3s that are hitting the used market.
Right.
And a gateway for a lot of people to get into a Tesla is going to see how they hold up. And if these Model 3s aren't holding up very well, if we're seeing a lot of this range problem with the batteries that I'm experiencing now, it's not a problem for me because I'm charging every night. But it's all about the perception, right? So if the perception is the cars won't hold up, the batteries are way too optimistic, and the batteries cost a crazy amount of money to replace. If you got all of that baked into the perception of these cars, it's going to be a headwind for Tesla.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's more important for the used car market than the new car market. I think all of those things you're talking about, how long is it going to last? What's the battery range? The build quality, because those are things. Number one, if you buy it new and something's wrong, you just take it back and they have to fix it because it's new. But number two, if you drive it 60, 70, 80,000 miles as a new car owner and then sell it, you don't care what happens to it after that. So, you know, so as the used car buyer, you care a lot more about all of those things than you might care about as a new car buyer. So yeah, that's a very important point. And yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't really matter what year you buy the Model 3 or the Model S or the Model Y, whatever. It's like you want that car to be good, even if it is several years old. So those differences in build quality don't matter so much if you're purchasing a 2019 or 2020 Model 3. It's like, okay, great. I'm glad the new ones are great, but they're also 40 grand. So I can't afford that right now. So, okay.
So yeah, and here's my take on that. So you need people that aren't just brand new Tesla buyers to be your next round of customers, because the people who bought Teslas brand new, they probably love them and they're going to be buying Teslas again for their next new car. But you got to have these used cars hold up so people can try the technology, decide they like it, and then that's can be your next wave of growth through Tesla. And if the cars just don't hold up, then you're not going to have this new wave of customer be able to come in. And I'm not saying you're not going to have new waves of customers. Obviously, Tesla's company is growing. More EVs, more Teslas are being sold every single year. But if you want this exponential growth, like what we've seen in the past, and now we're kind of plateauing a little bit, you've got to get this next layer of consumer into these cars. And their first step in there is going to be in a used one. They're not going to spend $40,000 on a brand new one. They have to try one out for $20,000 before they try a $40,000 one out.
Right. Speaking of that, what do you think about the value? You said the 3 was about 17.5 and the S was 22. I feel like the S almost feels like a steal, considering that was like an $80,000 car when it was new. So
yeah, I looked up the price of it when it was new, and it was a $95,000 car, and I paid 22 something for it. And that's
wow.
That's 5 years old. So ICE vehicles for the most part don't do that. So that's another interesting little thing about perception is, okay, I'm gonna buy this car, and then 3 years later it's going to be worth half of what I paid for it. That's that could be a potential concern. But also I think the more prices drop and the more that they get crushed in value on the used car market, the better it is for Tesla long term. So if we keep getting price cuts from Elon, or if we have Hertz that just dumped all of these Model 3s, that has put downward pressure on the used Model 3 space. So that allows more people to be able to get into these cars at an affordable price. And then you can create lifelong Tesla customers just because they're able to buy it for $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 versus
Right.
having to buy a brand new one for $36,000, $37,000, $38,000.
Right. And also, the Inflation Reduction Act, at least at present, is it 4,000 or 4,500 for most used car buyers? Like if you qualify the first time, I don't think it happens after the first time, but let's say somebody bought it new 3 or 4 years ago, then they sell it. If you're the first used buyer, I think you get a $4,000 tax credit, which is not nothing. If you're talking about a $20,000 car, that knocks the price down real nicely. So
yeah, I think it's $4,500, and I think you actually have to
45,
buy it from a dealer.
Oh, so you can't buy a third party. So okay.
I think so. You have to double check me on that one. But I'm pretty
So
sure.
then you got to deal. You got to deal with those shady used cars dealers.
And then you're going to end up paying $4,500 more for it anyway. So then
Yeah,
that's
exactly. Somebody will get their $4,500. Okay, so let's do some I guess pluses and minuses. Best thing about either of the cars that you just like have really found like surprising, enjoyable, what put the smile on your face, whatever.
Well, my favorite thing is acceleration. We won't go into that. Everybody knows the Teslas are fast. That's fun. Okay, but the surprising thing that's a plus. I've now been driving a Tesla for a month and a half, 2 months. At this point, I have not been to a gas station. I've not been to a charging station. That surprised me. I've not been to a charging station. Yeah. So this is something that's not like people. This is one of the things that I love so much about this channel that I've made is that people, even me knowing a little bit about the space, I thought I would have to at least go to a charging station, like a long day of driving, but no, you just think about it like you're just filling up your tank every single night. Yeah. I got the 240 outlet put in, and it's charging at 30 miles per hour. But even before that, I was charging the Model 3, and it was getting 5-6 miles per hour. And then overnight, honestly, that's plenty. So yeah. I think the charging scenarios that a lot of people are worried about that they think there's going to be an issue is probably in most cases, not all cases, right, but in probably 80 to 90% of most use cases is probably a non-issue. And I've found it to be an absolute non-issue. I think there was one day I drove that Model 3 and it's only got 200 miles worth of range.
Right.
Really probably 160.
Yeah.
And there was only one day where I even got it down to like 10%. So
right.
I really don't think the charging is an issue, and Tesla's going to have to figure out a way to educate the public to know that the charging is not a problem.
Okay. Let's table that because I think I really want to talk about the education aspect, and you might call it advertising. But okay, so on the flip side, the biggest sort of downside or negative about either of them or both?
Cars are very optimistic. The biggest thing, I think, build quality. I know I've talked about a lot, and I've talked about this on Farzad's channel, and I got hammered in the comments saying, well, you bought a used car. They have to hold up more than 5 years, and this Model 3 has not. All the Model 3s that I've checked, it seems like every Model 3 that I've seen come up at auction, there is a condensation in the taillights. So that's one thing. Before I sell it on my lot, I'm going to have to replace one of those taillights because there's condensation that's built up in there. That just the panel gaps on all of these Model 3s, even the Model S I had, horrible. I have one door on each one of these cars. In the Model 3, it's the back right door. It looks like it's open, and it's closed all the time, and it looks like it's open all the time. Wow. My driver door on my Model S looks like it's open, and when I'm driving down the highway interstate, it whistles because it's not closing all the way. So that's one big thing. And from what I've heard in the newer ones, the build quality is much, much better. But what I would like to tell you people in the comments that are going to blow me up, well, you got to use them. They have to hold up if you want to get that next tier of buyer. Right. The new buyers, they're fine. They're going to get brand new cars, right? But if you want that next tier of buyer, that next level of growth, the cars have to hold up as far as quality goes.
Okay. So plus and minus thing again. If you were, I don't know, pick a relative, somebody who's not like an EV head or something like that. But if you were going to say, like, if they're saying like, I want a new car or a new used car, what car should I buy? And you were going to try to convince them, well, just give them that you want to convince them to buy a Tesla. How would you, like, what would you pitch to them? So you could pick whatever relative. You don't have to say who it is, but like their personality, you know, they're just like an old curmudgeon or something. They don't like anything new, or I don't know. You pick it.
Well, I don't want to. Let's see here. I'm gonna. My mom does not fix that mold at all. But what I think would be the best exercises if I was going to my mother to put her in a car, and trying to sway her to get a Tesla. What would I say to her? Well,
Yeah.
I think that I would talk to her about the charging. I would talk to her about the maintenance that's not really going to have to happen. Now, I haven't had to fix anything in either one of these
Right.
Teslas yet.
Yeah.
So I don't have that experience. So maybe it's horrible. I just don't know yet. I would tell her about all the positives that I'm experiencing as far as, okay, at the end of the day, I just pull it in the garage, plug it in, never have to even think about about going to the gas station ever. I would talk about the pep that the cars have, but I don't think she would care all that much about it. I think the biggest draw, the two biggest things that would sell a Tesla to someone like my mother, who has driven an ICE car all the time and not even really looked into the EV market, doesn't know anyone else other than me who has a Tesla. The two big selling points is charging at home, no gas station, and no regular maintenance that you have to perform. I think those are the two biggest selling points,
Cool.
and that's probably what I would lead with.
Okay. And then let's take the flip side. If the person said, hey, should I buy a Tesla? And you were like, you know, what would be the thing where you would say, like, you maybe want to watch out for this if you're thinking about buying one?
I mean, build. It's always going back to build quality. So
Okay.
I would say, okay, if you want to buy a Tesla, great. I had this great experience, but before you buy one, make sure you're not buying it from Tesla's used inventory, because you can't even see the picture of the car. So you don't
Right.
know how the panel gaps are. You don't know if the doors will shut, whatever. You can't check out the car. Go to a used car dealer, go to hopefully someone who's selling one, an individual or whatever. I would rather you buy from an individual than a used car dealer anyway. But
Yeah.
if you can find one like that, make sure you can just put your hands on the
You got
car.
to be the funniest used car dealer ever. You're like, don't buy from a used car dealer. Anyway.
Don't you can get a better experience buying from an individual. You can know the history on the car.
Yeah.
I go buy cars from auction. I don't know where they came from. Yeah. So
I've had it happen both ways. I love to sell to people because I know who's getting the car, because usually I like my cars, you know, I don't just want to dump them. And then I also like to buy from people because I then get to find out the history of the car. So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's cool if you can do that. Okay. So I have a couple of questions I want to ask, but I've been really intrigued by, when do you think, because you said your car lot, you sell sub $5,000 cars. When do you think, or is there a car already, maybe not a Tesla, maybe a Chevy Bolt or something, is there a car that's already in the $5,000 range that you would even consider selling that's an EV? And if not, how many years do you think it's going to take before we're going to get there?
the answer is no, because all of the ones that I'm going to be able to go and pick up at auction for like $3,000, $3,500, maybe even $2,500 are going to be like your older Nissan Leafs.
Right.
And I got in one. This is actually a funny story. My wife and I, we were filming at an auction one day. She never goes to auctions. She just, for whatever reason, this one day she came and said, "I can help you with filming. I don't have anything to do." But there was a Nissan Leaf there, and it was out in the auction lot, and we can drive some of these cars before before they go through the auction.
Right.
It had 100% battery, so we took off driving in it, and I finally looked down to see how many miles that equated to while we were driving it.
Right.
It was 8 miles.
Oh shit.
So no, those batteries are not going to be one that I'm trying to sell to a consumer. I don't even want to. We whipped that car around so fast and got it back to the auction lot, so we didn't get stranded. But I think it's going to be a very long time, because even these, like I went to a dealer to look at a Model S that was a 2017, I think, and it had 186,000 miles, a lot of miles. And it was still 13 grand at that. Well, it wasn't 13 grand dealership. They advertised it for $13,000. And then when I got there, it was $18,000. So, anyway, so I think it's going to be a very long time, even for high mileage Teslas, which is all I would touch right now.
Right.
But it's, if I had to put dates, like 10 years. a decade.
Oh, wow. You really think it will take it? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because, they have, as a new car Tesla owner, it's very disappointing for me how much the prices have crashed because, of course, the used price, if I look at the garage, I'm like, man, these cars are not worth that much anymore. But for a used, buyer, that's excellent because, of course, you can get a much better deal much more quickly with lower mileage. But yeah,
Well, let
5,000
me
is
tell
certainly,
you.
yeah,
Yeah, let me talk about why it's going to be a big problem. The technology
okay,
has to get better,
yeah,
because a battery, if you're going to replace a battery right now, I just talked to Farzad about this, costs about $15,000 to replace.
yep,
And when you get into these used cars and someone knows, okay, even if I'm getting a steal on this Model 3 and I'm only paying $10,000 on it,
right,
when the battery goes out, you have to just throw away the car because the car's not worth the
right,
money that you're going to have to replace it. And Farzad said, well, the likelihood of your battery going out is this about the same likelihood as when, like, say your motor or transmission is going to go out in your
right,
car. Said, okay, well, that's fine, but I can get a used motor put in
right,
a car and have a warranty on top of that. And it only costs about 2,000 to 2,500 bucks.
right,
So it's not an equal comparison, because if I have a $5,000 car and the motor goes out, then I can replace that motor cheaper than I can buy another car. But it's
right.
not going to be that case with that Model 3 that the battery goes out. You just throw away the car.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is I almost it's making me wonder whether there's eventually going to be a used battery swap market or something like that. So that, you could get a new Model 3, not a new, but a new used Model 3 battery
Right.
container from a third party, because I don't think Tesla would ever do that. But anyway, I will tell you from my own personal experience, I'm having to deal with the back glass on our Model 3. God damn it. We don't even know. It was sitting in the parking lot, got cracked. And it's been 2 months we've been waiting for the glass because we have to go through SafeLight to get the insurance because it's $1,500 for that piece of glass. And
Right.
SafeLight's just like, we're just waiting. Eventually we'll get it in and then you guys can get it and bring it to us. And I'm like, geez. So, it's not cool when it comes to service and stuff. And that's I would chalk that up to some growing pains with Tesla because they're just not that big yet, and they're putting all the glass into their new cars, not into their old cars, into repair cars. So
Right.
so yeah, it's challenging on that.
And if
Okay,
you go
yeah,
back to
good.
talk about the batteries, like the warranty was 8 years, I think, on the batteries.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
it's like a
we're
hundred and something thousand, 110, I think, thousand miles, something like that.
So we're getting up to the range now where, okay, there were a lot of Teslas that they started to ramp up 2016,
Yeah,
2017, 2018. We're getting into that range. So I'm very excited to see what's going to happen, because all these batteries are now starting to fall out of warranty.
right.
And from what I've heard from Farzad, these batteries last forever, right? So
Yeah,
it has not been my case when I've been looking for these Model S's. I think I had 5 that my guy in Tesla was able to check, and it was either 3 or 4 of them
wow,
had their battery replaced.
right,
So Farzad's rebuttal to that was, well, the reason that they're probably on the used market is because the previous owner had a bad experience. They had to replace the battery. So that's why I got that kind of experience. But even if that's the case, it's probably, in my estimation, not as rare as what I hear from Farzad that the batteries actually go
right.
bad. And that's something that I would love to see some numbers on. And I don't know if that even exists.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's unfortunate that we don't have access to that. It would be nice if Tesla was transparent, but what company would do that? They're not going to do that. But
If they were, if the percentages were extremely low,
yeah,
I think 100% they would be transparent about it. So
yeah,
that
yeah,
leads me to believe that maybe it's a lot worse than what we actually
right.
think.
There's also one of the things about batteries is that they're like a living organism more than a piece of technology, and they just keep changing the chemistry all the time. So I would, looking at that Nissan Leaf is a great example because that was a car that was really cool when it came out, but the battery technology was terrible in those things. And so,
Yep.
now you get 8 miles. You have enough to drive it off the lot, and then you got to recharge it. So,
Yep.
that's problematic. But in 2024, and again, it doesn't matter for a used car because you're buying a 2019, but in 2024, at least in my experience, we had a 2020 Model Y, and then we have a 2020 Model 3 and Model Y. And the 2020 Model Y, I saw the battery degradation pretty quick. These guys, nothing. I mean, they're the Model 3 it's an LFP battery, which is the iron phosphate one, and I think it started at 263 was the mileage that we got, and now it's 259 or 260. And that's after a year and a half of we've got 30,000 miles on it. So I mean, it's lost 4 miles of range. So I mean,
Right,
that's
and the technology should be getting better, and
Yeah,
I am well aware of that. But that next tier consumer, they're not going to see that because they're not spending $45,000 on a Tesla.
No, exactly. Yeah, and the other thing is, I don't know. It's quite possible that everything's great until it hits 100,000 miles, and then it goes. So it's just so hard to know because that's what going back to the beginning of our conversation is these things haven't been around for 20 years, so we don't have a good idea of the statistics of how well batteries last. Electric motors, we pretty much know because they're in everything. Like your refrigerator, you can have a 20-year-old refrigerator, no problem. So you expect that a well-designed electric motor is probably going to last a long time. So it really kind of comes down to the electronics in there and the batteries. Yeah. Speaking of that, full self-driving, have you tried it? Like, did you end up getting it for either of the cars? Okay.
So my Model S has the Raven package, so I can pay the $99 a month and get it. I'm scared of it. So I've been using autopilot in both cars, and I've used it quite a bit. And it goes across the lane all the time. It slams on brakes. It's like sometimes it doesn't recognize that there's another car around. Like it shows it on the screen, but it's like this weirdly aggressive and then passive driver all in one built in.
Right.
And like there will be a car that's pulling off of the road, but it's well in front of me, but it'll still slam on brakes.
Yeah. Oh,
And
that's old software. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. So
yeah. So anyway, if autopilot is that bad, it scares me to try the FSD. I'm still going to try it, but I'm just going to be very, very cautious while I'm using it. And Farzad said that the systems are completely different. So I don't know why they would be different, but they are absolutely different. So FSD is going to give me a whole different experience. It's going to use more cameras. It's going to use better AI than the autopilot is. But the autopilot scares me. It's that bad.
Okay. I would also suggest, this is something that I think a lot of people that have been driving Teslas with full self-driving for a long time forget. There's also, it's not just the training of the car, but it's the training of the you, because it takes a while to get to the point where you're like, oh, it will break eventually. Because for me, it always breaks like 1 to 2 seconds later than I would. I'm coming up on a red light and I see some cars in front of me, and I would take my foot off the accelerator and start braking now. But it's like 1,000, 2, 1,000, and then it breaks. And I'm like, why? Why do you wait so long to do that? Which maybe that feeling of aggressiveness. But anyway, you have to your brain gets trained as well to be like, yeah, it's going to be okay. It's not going to like blow up or drive off the road or something.
Right. So. And I can get on board with that with the braking and stuff, but it goes across dotted lines all the time. Like the solid lines, if it's on a highway, we got 2 solid lines, is absolutely fine. But if we have a dotted line with a curve or whatever, it's like sometimes it doesn't even recognize that and just keeps on veering. Yeah. So it worries me.
Okay. Yeah. That's really weird. I haven't, even on autopilot, I haven't had that experience in quite a while. So, you'll have to try it for us, and we'll have to come back and talk about full self-driving and see how it is.
I want to get it. I want to try to get it on video because there's a lot of people in my comments like, no, like, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'll send you a list of like the things that I've got. It's not that much money. It's like a little tripod thing that sets up on the roof, and then a little dash cam that I have sitting behind the car so you can see like everything. So yeah.
Oh yeah, anyway. I need to try that. Yep.
Yep. So cool. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Let's see. What else do we have about this? Your adventures are, what'd you say, about a month to 2 months old. So you've been doing this for a little while. I guess buyer's remorse. How about that? You started a channel, so hopefully you're planning on keeping them for a while.
Yeah, no. And I'll tell you the same thing that I told Farzad. Even after all this negativity that I've said about these Teslas, right. And I can't believe I would even say this on the internet, but I can't see myself having a daily driver that's not a Tesla for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
You
I
heard it here
love the
first,
experience.
folks. Yeah.
Well, you heard it here second.
Second.
But
Sorry, I heard it here second. Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, so I love the experience. I love just being able to plug it up at home. I love the not I'm not 100% on with all the tech yet, but I feel like I'll get used to it. I get into my wife's van now, and like her van doesn't cut itself off. I can't just walk out, get out of the car. So I'm already used to um, just the things that Tesla does right. I'm already used to that, and I'm expecting
Yeah.
it to be in every other car. When I get in her van and hit the gas pedal, it's like the car doesn't freaking go. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you deal with that all the time. If you get into any kind of ICE car, it's just like it's 100%. When I hit the gas pedal now, I expect the car to go,
Yeah.
and these ICE cars that I'm driving, they don't. The other thing, like being able to turn on the AC on a hot day, like 20
Yep.
minutes before I'm even getting in the car. I love that. That's probably up there with the acceleration as far as one of my favorite things.
For those of us who
Um,
live in the South, that is a big deal. That's a
big deal, big
really
deal.
big deal. Yeah.
Even like just knowing like shifting the gears. Like I got into my wife's van today because we had to move some stuff and I needed the space. But I went to shift into park and I put on the windshield wipers. And so even learning all these systems and getting used to them now, like I'm trying to do those same things in cars that aren't Teslas, and it doesn't work out for me.
Right.
But I'm loving the experience. I'm still in the honeymoon phase though, right? Because this is a
Yeah.
different. I've been driving cars for 20 years now, and it's a different experience. So
Yeah.
it might wear off, and I might be like, you know what, I'm fine driving something else. But I don't see that happen. I think all the pros outweigh the cons of what I'm actually experiencing in these cars.
Cool. I will just tell you, so we bought our first Tesla in 2020, and it was very, it was a high risk situation because it was a lot of money for us. It was 60 grand with the full self-driving. So it was like that much money. And we were just like, it's double the price of any other car I'd ever bought. 30 grand was the most I'd ever paid for a car. And we still, so it's 4 years ago now almost. And I still like am in the honeymoon phase. So, as much as it does have some problems and there's some concerns and things like that, I'm just like, I can't see going back to a gas car. Yeah, I agree. We spent some time in California this summer and we rented a Mazda CX-5, and it was terrifying. You get onto the highway and you hit the gas and you stomp it all the way down.
It just doesn't go. Yeah.
It screams really loud. It's like
Yeah.
like that, but it doesn't do anything. Nothing happens. So yeah, it's terrifying. So yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying about that. Cool. So that was actually, I was thinking that was a good wrap up, but I have one more question for you because you're a good old Southern boy, and my wife is, she's a truck girl, and our reservation thing came up for the Cybertruck. If you had access to a Cybertruck right now, given the fact, I think there are starting to be used ones on the market, but anyway, would you even consider a Cybertruck at this point after driving these sedans?
Nope.
Okay. Because
I don't think it's made to do a lot of truck things yet. Now I know it'll haul a little bit, but I mean,
yeah,
if you want to take it to work, if I want to haul a trailer, take a trip or whatever, then it's not going to work out for that without charging it a lot more than what
right.
the range is going to say. We know this is all over the internet, that and also it's the ugliest thing that's on the road. I would never get
You
in
said
there.
that before. You said that before, and I was like, I think he's going to be consistent about that. So yeah, it is definitely. It looks like a doorstop. It looks like a silver doorstop. So
Yeah, I feel like even if it was like $35,000, I don't know that I would buy one. It's just it looks, and this is all my personal opinion. And
Right.
a lot of times you either hate the look of the Cybertruck or you absolutely love it. And I just can't get on board with it. I think it's the ugliest thing that's on the road. I really do. And I've seen them in person now, and they're big, and it's cool that they're big, but it's so ugly.
So I would suggest somebody in the comments who lives in this area, let's all do a drive together, because the inside of the car, once I'm inside the outside of the car, I still have to admit, without a wrap on it is like, eh. If you put a black wrap on it, it looks a lot better. But the inside of the car is nice and it really drives well. in my experience, relatively few, but I've gotten a chance to drive it. And I'm like, once I'm inside the car, I don't care what it looks like on the outside. I'm just like, wow, this is great. But on the outside it's like, it's like a big silver thing. So
Yeah.
I can't understand that. So, all right. Well, thank you, Brandon. I really appreciate it. Anything else you want to conclude with, or have we talked ourselves out on this whole thing?
I mean, I think I'm good. Make sure you go check out our new channel, EVs on Ice. Subscribe to John's channel, and that's all I got.
Cool. All right. Well, everybody enjoy, and let us know what your experience about Teslas are, and whether any of you are interested in purchasing a used car or a used Tesla, or have done that previously. We'd be interested to know that as well. So cool. In the meantime, we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.